Welcome to Sibos Today. I'm Nadine DeRaza.
And I'm Stephen Chow. Coming up, the Sibos Big interview with Chairwoman, CEO and President of Deutsche Bank Trust Company Americas, Susan Skerritt.
Blockchain explained and updated. Yes, we have a Sibos TV panel here to guide us. And we also have another trip out with our cameras to explore, well, let's face it, it is a beautiful city of Geneva.
Now, at Sibos 2015, blockchain was the big issue of the conference. There was a lot of excitement and some pretty big claims too, including speculation that blockchain could potentially kill settlements and clearing businesses.
So to discuss how the hype has translated into reality during the last 12 months, we were joined earlier by Thomas Zeeb, CEO of Six Securities Group, and Blythe Masters, CEO of Digital Asset Holdings.
Welcome, guys. Tom, let me start off with you. Blockchain sounds like it could be a threat to post-trade infrastructure operations like Six Securities, yet you are actively engaging with it. Why is that so?
Well, as Nadine said, last year there were a lot of claims made that it could wipe out our business, that it would take out 95% of the costs in the back office. In the meantime, there's a lot of work been done in the context of finding the solution before we've identified the problem. And what we've done is we've really looked at this from the point of view of which of our problems does it or could it potentially solve, create some use cases, and then we're working together with Digital Asset now to look at can we actually make the solutions fit the problem and resolve the issues that we have.
And Blythe, I know your company builds financial tools using blockchain. So how do you see blockchain actually adding value to post-trade processing?
The easiest way to think about it is that blockchain facilitates, or blockchain-inspired technology facilitates encrypted straight-through processing tools, whereby multiple entities involved in the post-trade process, which include the clearinghouse, the CSD, also the parties to the transactions, custodians and the like, are able to manage data on a single ledger rather than separate or siloed ledgers. And that introduces enormous efficiencies. It removes needs for reconciliation. It doesn't mean that clearing ceases to exist as a function. It means that it is lower cost and more efficient to perform the act of clearing and settlement.
Would it be fair to say, Tom, that this technology is still largely untested in this space? So how can organizations make sure that the technology, is relevant and applicable?
I think the only way you can do it is by doing what we're now doing with prototyping, looking at starting with a use case, starting with a business problem, and then assessing whether this or indeed other technologies are the best way to address those issues. Take an example. One of the discussions I had last year was that one could very quickly create efficiency by going from T+2, which most Western markets now have, to T+0. I can do that now. You know, it's a 12-hour process. I could go to T+instant. All I'm doing, though, is substituting a limited operational risk with a very high credit risk if I do that. And so the question then becomes, if we want to shorten those settlement cycles, can we use other technologies to actually look backwards along the chain and the implications through the whole process of the credit review, the settlement, the clearing, and reduce the risk through the whole process? And that's just a process we have to go through, establish the prototypes, and then work with our partners and with our various people internally to look at how we implement that.
And Blythe, I know last year, I think it was mentioned that blockchain can handle 7 transactions per day, but market infrastructures handle 10 million transactions per day. So how do you think blockchain technologies will work at this kind of scale? Because there's a huge difference, isn't there?
An enormous difference. I think probably what you're referring to would have been commentary about the public Bitcoin blockchain, which is in fact the original invention that has inspired a lot of the distributed ledger technology that has grown from it. But exactly for that, and actually several other reasons, new iterations of distributed ledger technology have taken different approaches to those taken by the original public Bitcoin blockchain. For example, we operate only with private networks where every participant is known and permissioned in advance before they can participate in any capacity. One of the byproducts of that is that it makes the mechanism for deploying data to a distributed ledger less onerous from a time consumption point of view. And for example, it is very possible using our technology to process transactions at a rate of thousands per second, not the couple of 100,000 a day that the public Bitcoin blockchain was processing then and may well still be today. So millions of transactions a day is very achievable using the blockchain-inspired technology, which has evolved quite a long way from the original in order specifically to cope with the needs of large-scale, enterprise-wide, national market systems, the likes of which SIX operate.
And is that a best-kept secret, or do people understand that, do you think?
I think the people that run systemically consequential market infrastructures definitely understand that. And I think that anyone that runs one of those wouldn't even contemplate investigating this technology if that wasn't an option.
What about market volatility? Because the markets can be volatile. Can the technology sort of keep pace with that and adapt to that volatility, Tom?
Well, that's a question that really isn't specific to blockchain. We are in the business of dealing with market volatility and dealing with the issues that come out of the volumes that are sometimes extremely unpredictable. So certainly part of the use cases that we develop are how do we ensure that we can increase capacity very quickly and bring it back down again very quickly, because every capacity increase obviously has a cost implication associated with it. That's just part of our business.
And we've heard that cyber attacks is sort of the big theme for this year. And cyber attacks, as we've heard on businesses and financial institutions, seem to be becoming more frequent, more sophisticated. Do you think blockchain is robust enough to actually withstand cyber attacks?
Well, that, as you can imagine, is a complicated question. Because any network or any system has to be carefully designed in order to ensure that it is robust in the face of a variety of different cyber risks. And the answer is that if properly implemented, absolutely distributed ledger technology-based systems not only can meet the standards of existing technology, but exceed it for a variety of reasons. The use of encryption and a cryptographically secure environment for identity management, the fact that individual sub-parts of any given transaction are separately encrypted or hashed, these aren't quite the same thing, is an improvement on traditional database infrastructure. And the fact that in a network that is shared, you have multiple instances of the same database that can be recovered in near to real time, means that a failure at one point can, from a resiliency point of view, potentially be addressed more quickly because it provides an additional way to the traditional one of having a backup and recovery mechanism. Having a live alternative actually makes resiliency in the face of a cyber attack an improvement. So it does depend very much on the details. And as you look at deploying these systems in the real world, there is a very great responsibility on the part of the market operator, the technology vendor, and their respective regulators to assess and evaluate all of those questions. But the good news is that market operators are already subject today to an array of standards and requirements from a regulatory compliance point of view that insist on redundancy, recoverability, availability, capacity, all of these features. So the regulators already have the tools to demand and require that these systems meet those requirements. And that is what is, again, as Tom put it, our job to do. So we have to satisfy those requirements before there's any chance that any of these systems would be used in the real world.
But unfortunately, even the most robust system may fail in that sense if the end user has other intentions. Is there a way to keep out fraudsters? Tom?
Again, fraud is one of those issues that's prevalent in almost any industry and is at least as complicated as a cybersecurity issue. There isn't a solution that is an IT solution alone that will address that issue. There are regulatory requirements around that. Dealing with collusion is as much a physical security issue, it's a vetting issue. Fraudsters will always look to find a way around the existing processes that are there. I think by having the checks and balances in a distributed ledger environment, you have one more tool to try and stop that. But it doesn't mean that we stop being vigilant in all the other things that we do as financial institutions to ensure that fraud doesn't have a chance to start.
And Tom, as a result of that, there's a word, co-opetition, which I'm sure you know that
word.
one. It's horrible. It's cooperation between competitors. It will be. It will get through into the Oxford English Dictionary. And co-opetition, you're liking it now, I can see, is increasing across financial services. So do you think the co-opetition, I've said it again, between banks and market infrastructures is going to be a necessity, really, for blockchain to be adopted widely?
Collaboration between stakeholders or market participants in the infrastructure is already occurring, both in terms of some of the technical solutions that we're building and working together with them on, as well as obviously on the business front. Do I think that the blockchain alone will increase it? No. It's a tool to allow us to deliver solutions to the market. I think, and Blythe mentioned it before, digital asset is looking primarily at closed blockchain systems. Certainly in the short term, I think that has more legs than looking at something that's wide open, where you have many more parameters that you cannot control.
So you think every organization can do its own thing then?
I think there have to be a set of standards, and we have to be careful that we don't all go off into different versions of how we set up our technological infrastructures, because ultimately we live off the fact that they have to talk to each other. And so standards are an important part of it, and there's a lot of work going on in that direction. But I do believe that there will be links between different blockchains that serve different purposes in different parts of our businesses. I don't think it's a solution where you can say we're going to replace an entire CSD or we're going to replace a registrar from front to back with one blockchain solution. That to my mind is not a realistic ambition at this stage.
It's not a one-size-fits-all. But Blythe, perhaps a recommendation for companies who are thinking of heading down this route of blockchain technology, some of the considerations they should have in mind as they approach it.
Well, I think at this stage, there are very few of the world's major financial infrastructure providers or financial firms like banks that haven't already begun a fairly significant investment of time, resources, in some cases capital already. The appeal of the solution, I think, is now very broadly understood. The distinctions between what distributed ledger technology has become and what it was when it was originally put forward as an idea to facilitate the use of the cryptocurrency Bitcoin is a big difference. There's a long evolution there in a short period of time, and I think the education process has become much more robust and much more widely understood. So as I say, I think many are already engaged in that process. I think the challenge is to find, as Tom said, a situation where you have a business need and are able to put a technology to use to solve that business need. Why is that important? Well, because the economics will make sense. If you're engaged for the purpose purely of experimentation or proving an idea, but don't have a legitimate business problem being solved, whether that's cost saving, risk reduction, improved transparency, meeting a regulatory requirement, whatever the objective is. If you don't have that, then it's very hard to justify the costs of investing and innovation in order to build for the future. Mm-hmm. But what's fascinating about these tools is that they are largely asset class agnostic. Once you have an understanding and implementation of the core plumbing, if you will, They redeploy again and again across multiple use cases, from fixed income to equities to identity management, out of financial services into healthcare and other places. And that makes it very powerful. So the investment of energy, time, resources is very readily justified because of the fact that almost everyone who is spending time on this realizes quickly that there is a lot more that they can do than just the initial use case where they start.
Well, thank you both to Tom and Blythe, and enjoy the rest of your Sibos.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Stephen, blockchain's still a really hot topic this year. It was last year.
Definitely.
Still a lot of people talking about it.
And maybe next year as well. Who knows? In fact, I'm pretty sure next year, because we'll be at that next stage of blockchain. So
interesting how it's moved on.
That's true.
Since then. Okay. Well, after a few days at conference, you may well think you deserve a drink or two after all that useful business, and why not? Now, as part of my services to humankind, I've been out and about to have a look at some of the bars here in Geneva that might just tempt you. So take a look at this. After a long day at the conference, you'll be looking to unwind. If you're heading out to the bars, we've found a few you won't want to miss. Sophisticated with panoramic views of the mountains, the Glow Bar at the President Wilson Hotel is ideal at any time of the day. For coffee, a relaxing lunch, or sipping a signature cocktail. The hotel also hosts Michelin star chef Michel Roth, with 3 restaurants to choose from that offer gourmet cuisine and tasting experiences from right across the world. Set on an island on the River Rhône in Geneva's Old Market Hall is the home of the Brasserie des Halles de Lille. The perfect place to meet friends and colleagues for a relaxed evening.
We're in the center of Geneva. We're right at Bel Air. I think it's a great place to meet all different types of people. We have local Geneva coming here. We have international Geneva coming here, like you see tonight as well, with the United Nations, with beautiful scenery at night. So you can see all the, banking district. So it's a fun place to meet people and just to, enjoy your time here.
And if you're wanting the ultimate rooftop view, the 5 Lounger Bar at the Metropole Hotel boasts one of the best in Geneva, overlooking the lake. The stylish and relaxed ambience makes this the perfect place to spend your evening.
It certainly does sound like a wonderful idea to visit some of the bars. I mean, I think we've all been meeting here, having a lot of meetings, we've been preparing for the show, so it'll be nice to kick back for a bit.
Have I given you some ideas? Do you know which bar you're going to go for?
I don't know which one, but they all look very tempting. Have you heard about the time that the past, present and future walked into a bar?
No.
It was tense.
I love your command of English. It's fantastic.
Okay, it's time to move on. Corporate customers are increasing the pressure on banks to improve cross-border payments, and new challenges are coming every week from digital innovators.
So how are banks responding? This is what we asked Susan Skerritt of Deutsche Bank when we filmed her for the Sibos Big Interview.
The correspondent banking business is already highly digitized. However, customers are demanding increasing levels of speed, transparency, and traceability. In order to respond, the industry needs connectivity and collaboration. And joining me now to talk about how technology is transforming the correspondent banking space is Susan Skerritt from Deutsche Bank. Susan, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Stephen.
So what is the importance of correspondence banking in the economy?
Oh, Stephen, the correspondent banking industry is the engine of global commerce. Without correspondent banking, money simply wouldn't move. it wouldn't be possible to affect trade globally. And given the importance of global trade, it's absolutely fundamental. To give you an idea of how important it is, Deutsche Bank alone processes over €1 trillion of payments, cross-border payments, every single day. So you can see that without the network that correspondent banking provides, monies simply you wouldn't be able to affect the kind of money movement and global trade that we do now.
Mm-hmm. And how are customer demands affecting this or causing any change to it?
Well, it's interesting. If you look at the correspondent banking industry now, the rate of straight-through processing, so the relative efficiency associated with payments, is quite high. At Deutsche Bank, we have a straight-through processing rate of over 97%. But we recognize that that's not enough. Mm-hmm. Our clients are demanding more speed. They are demanding more transparency. They want to have information about their payments sooner and more deep information. And their clients, so the corporate clients of banks, are also demanding this. It makes a certain amount of sense. If you think about us as individuals, we have access now to information at our fingertips immediately. So it's natural that our clients would want to see the same kind of information, the same kind of speed associated with their business transactions.
And is this a big challenge?
Oh, of course it's a challenge, but it's one that I think the industry is up to. Absolutely.
When we talk about this, of course, I guess connectivity, collaboration will be a key part to this formula to make it all work. How significant is that? Extremely
significant. So let me talk a little bit about SWIFT and Sibos historically, and then I want to talk about what the industry is doing now to respond to those client demands. So historically, what SWIFT has done is to enable a level of connectivity and collaboration in the industry. And the very first thing that SWIFT did was to create standards so that everybody was talking to one another using the same language. So those fundamental standards made all the difference in the way in which payments flow cross-border. That's crucial. Mm-hmm. So for the next step, we need the same level of collaboration and connectivity. And that has started with something called the SWIFT GPI initiative, which stands for Global Payments Innovation. GPI is ultimately a cloud-based alternative that provides many of the benefits that I mentioned clients are looking for. So the idea is you have a cloud into which payment information flows as soon as the payment is initiated, so that everyone down the line is able to get access to significant information held in the cloud. Mm-hmm. That initiative, which is being rolled out in 2017, will provide some real benefits. But beyond that, the industry is looking at distributed ledger technology, blockchain, and a variety of other initiatives. One other that we're involved with is utility settlement coin, an exciting digital cash alternative. So there's a lot going on that's going to enable us to take that next step.
But one of the challenges also, it means that competitors have to work together. Everyone has to be on board, otherwise it doesn't work.
Absolutely. It's called co-opetition, and it is a standard in the correspondent banking industry. We all have to work together, and there is mutual benefit associated with that.
What about efforts to tackle issues such as money laundering and cybercrime?
Money laundering and cybercrime are key issues that the industry is very focused on and has to be focused on. So our clients are looking to us to process safe payments. It is the bank's responsibility, all correspondent banks' responsibility, to ensure that we are fighting financial terrorism, fighting human trafficking. That really is fundamental to what we do. So we are investing in improved controls, improved processes, and this new technology provides platforms that's actually going to help us to respond to those challenges.
In what way? How is that technology helping advance those?
So let me give you one example. The SWIFT GPI initiative has as one of its components the ability to do pattern recognition. Mm-hmm. So that data that I told you would sit up in the cloud, there will be analytics that actually review the data and enable us as an industry to identify something that looks suspicious.
So that makes it, I guess, yeah, there's more open access for people to review and to assess what is happening out there
Exactly.
for everyone to see.
And broader information as opposed to an individual bank just looking at their flows.
Right. Well, this afternoon you also will be participating in a panel discussion. It's called Reinventing Correspondent Banking. Where Nix? Can I ask you where Nix? Do we know?
Well, you know what? There are a lot of possibilities, and we're going to debate that this afternoon, so I think it's going to be very interesting. But there's no question that technology is going to play a key role, and that we are going to have to all work together to make sure that the technology has the right standards, that the technology has the right security, and that we have the right framework, legal framework as well with that technology. The only way for that to happen is for us to work together.
Mm-hmm. A lot of it is hitching on technology. I mean, we talk about fintech, and many of the platforms all rely on technology. Are we too over-reliant on technology? What if it doesn't work? What do you think?
Well, first of all, we're not going to implement any technology until it's fully tested. So that doesn't concern me at all. And frankly, technology goes along with process and controls. So within each organization, certainly within Deutsche Bank, we are investing as much in process and controls as we are in technology. They have to be linked together.
How much of it is a push and how much is it a pull from customers, for instance? Which side is it coming from?
It is both. It is a push and a pull because we have our clients demanding more, but we recognize that as a correspondent bank, we also have to deliver more.
I'd like to ask you also about diversity and inclusivity. You know, you've been named one of the 25 women to watch in the banking industry. Do you think we've come far enough in that area?
Oh, no, we haven't come far enough. But I am cautiously optimistic that we're moving in the right direction. When I look at the generation of people coming into the workforce now, most of the people coming into the workforce have had more mothers who have worked. Over 50% of women work now, at least in the U.S., as opposed to probably less than 30% in the late 70s. And so that means that there have been more role models so that people are more accustomed to women in leadership roles. But we still have a ways to go.
Last question. You're here at Sibos. The theme this year is transforming the landscape. What are you most looking forward to or to get out from this conference?
Sibos is a fantastic opportunity for all of us to interact with our colleagues, with our peers, with our counterparties, and really understand the collective wisdom that resides here. So I always walk away from this conference feeling that we have put together information and shared ideas and concerns that enable the industry to go forward.
And do you think it will take, moving forward next year when you come back, do you hope to look back and say, I'm glad we talked about that because now we're here?
Well, in fact, the SWIFT GPI initiative that I mentioned started just last year, and we are already well into the first phase and anticipate the second phase being rolled out in 2017. So yes, I think that we are progressing at a faster rate than we ever have.
And what do you think is the biggest challenge now for the financial industry?
The biggest challenge.
I'm sure there are many, but...
I actually think the biggest challenge is cybersecurity, and I think that everyone is attuned to that challenge and doing everything that they can. SWIFT is, and I assure you, Deutsche Bank is as well.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for coming and speaking with us.
Thank you,
Susan
Stephen.
Skerritt from Deutsche Bank. Well, there you go. Lots to think about, and I'm sure next year we'll come back and we'll talk about things such as the GPI initiative as well.
Yeah, she was a fantastic lady to interview, actually. Done brilliantly over the years. And wonderful to hear her thoughts on how women are coming into the industry, how it's changed since the 70s, certainly in the US.
I know, following up from a discussion we had earlier today right here on Sibos TV. Well, folks, on that note, it's time for us to kind of say goodbye. We'll be back tomorrow for our last day of Sibos TV this year. It'll start with Good Morning Sibos at 8:30 a.m.
And after this program, Reinventing Correspondent Banking, where next? In fact, that's a very good question.
Where next?
Where is it? It's actually in Conference Room 3. From us, until tomorrow, have a wonderful evening.
Bye-bye.